Hello citizens, here's Earl Grey. Today I want to talk about Judge Dredd, not any kind of Judge Dredd iteration, but Brian Bolland's Judge Dredd. I mean, the publishing policies of Rebellion, aka 2000 AD, are a bit mysterious, since they usually republish their stuff in these kind of shrunken reprints, like they did with Kevin O'Neill's Nemesis, and there's a whole collection of Judge Dredd books, obviously, which is, yeah, a treat if your eyes are better than mine, but otherwise a bit of a crime, since especially Kevin O'Neill and the guy we're talking about today, Brian Bolland, are famous because of their intricate, detailed artwork. So it's a good thing that we got this reprint of Judge Dredd stories by Brian Bolland, even though it's the flaw by design in a way, is that some stories are interrupted in the mid, or you don't get the ending or whatever. Since this is a collection of Brian Bolland, and when some other took over the pencil, some other cartoonist, yeah, it's not in here. So this is a kind of a bummer, but we will get to this double-page spread a bit later. Yeah, and I got these whole slew of 2000 AD magazines later on. They're probably, or very probably, the most flimsy artifacts in my collection. This paper is almost not there. It's very thin, and to call it newspaper would almost be flattering. Somehow I really like it, and you see on some pages the problems the printing press had with all the stuff here, and I will come to these two here just as two examples a bit later on when we compare it to this book here. I mean, this is huge. It's the Apex collection, or Apex edition of Rebellion, aka 2000 AD, and it's even bigger than, let's say, the Bernie Wrightson Artist Edition by IDW, or Artifact Edition. So really, it's one of my bigger artist editions, and if you know these artist editions, they're always big. Reprinting the art at their original size, or like they say here with this Apex edition, as close to the actual size as possible, whatever that means. But it's a great book. There's a spoiler to this video here. It arrived in this unspectacular yet functional box, cardboard box. So I actually don't know what I do with it, but just wanted to show you. And here's the book. Right from the get-go, you see that's the cover of Prog number 182. And you can really see right there on the cover all the glued parts and details of the original art. So let's open this up. Yeah, and here we have an example, maybe my only complaint with the whole book. Why have they magnified this panel here to that size? I mean, it's very, very cool, obviously, but when you see this in person, you will see that this magnification was actually too much. The print became blurry, and this is really not necessary. When we see it from a distance, it's fantastic, but yeah, this was actually not necessary. Just take some artwork who could be magnified that way, or yeah, take a bit of more surroundings with it so that it looks better. This is the table of contents, and yeah, okay, I have another complaint, but this is actually just what they did here. For the most part, it's not a complete story. I guess 2 stories are printed in their 2 8 or 6 pages are reprinted here in their Unity. Otherwise, it's just all over the place. Single pages like this one here, the cover for Prog 11, and you can see down there the signature is Bolo for Brian Bolland. And yeah, here we arrive at very, very cool stuff here indeed. And this was the page that I've shown you before in that Brian Bolland collection here, where it is cleaned up. You have the clean black and white style there, while here you can really see how these sound effects are glued over the actual drawing, so the drawing shimmers or shines through the art here. And you have all these tones, color tones of the paper, who add significantly, in my mind, to the experience here. Let's see if we have the cover. I guess the covers are reprinted in the back here, so it has to be there as well. Yeah, same with this one here. We will see this in 2 at least different versions as well. So put lots of markers in it. Let's see how we come through this one here. This is one of the stories, The Night of the Fork from Prog 127, which is somehow Jack the Ripper story. Spoilers, it turns out, since this is in the future, we're dealing with the recreations of these murderers from the 19th centuries, not in as wax figures, as a wax figure cabinet, like in other tales from EC or something, but in robot form. So, but all the art has definitely these vibes of a Jack the Ripper story. When we forget 1 second about the outward appearance of Judge Dredd, but look at the mastery here already of a pretty early Brian Bolland. I mean, this is the stuff that he did before he went to America as a part of the British invasion, before he did The Killing Joke and all the other stuff. It's actually amazing to see that much stuff by Brian Bolland, a guy who always took his time with his art for good reasons. I mean, you can't sketch stuff like this in some seconds here. It takes time. So I guess a huge part of his all-over working output is just there in front of us in the original size, or as close as possible to the original size. This is from Prog number 172, a story about people getting jigsaw disease. So they're missing pieces of their body until they vanish completely. And here it is, Prog 172, with this amazing cover here, and this is reprinted in black and white in that Brian Bolland edition as well. And guess we have, here is the Brian Bolland original, or facsimile. So here you have the comparison close. My flimsy 2000 AD magazine. But despite of them being so flimsy and so, they are nice to the touch. I really like this velvet quality of this paper. But even to being endangered of sounding a bit creepy right now. Here you see the black and white version from that Brian Bolland collection, and here's the version from the Apex edition. Great effect, and you have to have in your mind that this was before we could do these kind of tricks very easily with our computer. We can do some comparison about this page here as well. I mean, this page here just is an amazing poster-like double page. All these alien creatures and nice Da Vinci homage and what else. Just great. And it was actually made to be as a looker, to stand out, because it was printed in this magazine in the centerfold. Maybe you know the drill. These 2000 ADs are for the most part black and white stories and printed comics. Like here, the continuation of that story, but with the jigsaw disease right there. It's just great, Brian Bolland. And actually, if you want to have Brian Bolland's art in black and white and don't want to spend too much money on it, I really would recommend to hunt down one of these prog magazines. Usually you can get them in a bundle pretty cheap. I really paid not much for them, but they're a big staple in my collection, I feel. And I really love this. You can't really color Brian Bolland. It's always a problem, since we know since The Killing Joke, where the two different ways of coloring it, but it adds some kind of goofy charm. So I picked this page here because it should show you the problems that you actually have when you're printing facsimiles or a facsimilized edition like this one here. Because I don't know if you can see this, but this is printed in a very different way, like our cover here. This is printed with much more contrast, and I would say overall better quality. But here you can see the mid-tones and light grayish tones a lot better, or a bit better. So, yeah, facsimile is not facsimile. There are obviously differences, and especially when you compare it with this one here. This is the original cover from the Prog 182, the way it was sold at the newsstands each week. You have to know that these 2000 AD magazines, it's a weekly magazine with different stories by different artists, and so each artist, and more or less they're all great, each artist has his own way to shine, or his own place to shine. Let's keep this in mind here, because we will see in a second the facsimilized original art, especially here, this way, this one here. Again, this is the centerfold that was devoted to Brian Bolland. Obviously, they already figured out what they have in Mr. Bolland, and of course in their central and title hero. And of course, you can see here all the blue pencils and whiteouts, and even the different attempts to work with a black marker. Here you can see underneath, don't know if it shows up in the video, but you can see underneath a first attempt to put this thing here there. So this artist edition really makes totally sense, especially when you like to figure out stuff about the creation process and how these panels were made, and when you try to compare it with the Prague, how it was printed. By the way, this maybe never had a second staple. I don't know. So let's jump ahead. One of the coolest characters in the megacity Judge Dredd world is Judge Death, I feel, and especially since you got beautiful art like this one here from Prague 224. Another great double page here. Just let it sink it in here. This is great. Some reproductions in color. And here just 2 pages show again the amazing qualities of Brian Bolland's art. How he can draw this crazy occurrence in the megacity when some rain washes down these streets here. You can see all these people who just want to swim there and have some fun, and the policemen, the cops of megacity trying to prevent it because in the water there's some virus who seemingly seems to infect everyone with block mania. And of course you have always your people to have your people under control, you know. And here we have an instance of block mania. And Judge Dredd is, of course, like 2000 AD, is a sci-fi magazine, of course, but it has some of the goofiest, weirdest, hilarious comics that I know of. Just look at this Judge Dredd special edition cover from 1994. And so we see here Brian Bolland becoming the great cover artist that he later on was. A bit unfortunately what I say, because I really wanted to see more and more, comics by him. This is a great inclusion here, a cover of an interview magazine on which Judge Dredd interviews his bit frightened creator. Right there. Look at this butt there. There are a few pages in which they included some of Brian Bolland's art in a very shrunken down way, but nevertheless so we can get glimpses into his pencil work. And even though I would really have liked it to see these pages in a bigger size as well, I'm gladful that we can see them at all right there. And since all these pages are pretty big, as there are, these reproductions are not as small as you might think. So, Judge Dredd. Wonderful cover here. Eagle Comics. These are reprints, I guess, for the US market. And yeah, of course, they used Brian Bolland's amazing qualities to just to draw fantastic covers with all the ingredients you want from him. Satanus. This is the son of... Yeah, it's a crossover to Nemesis, Kevin O'Neill's Nemesis. Again, some of these drawings here. Wonderful drawing of this little guy there. Judge Anderson, another one of these very important side characters. And stuff like this, I mean, look at that. At first I thought, oh, it's a self-portrait of Bolland, but probably not. But really a drawing that you won't forget so easily. More of these Eagle Comics reprints covers, they're all amazing as far as they reprinted here. Judge Dredd with King Kong here. A bunch of different goofy characters right there. Totally awesome, man. Yeah. And this fantastic Apex edition closes with early stuff by Brian Bolland, which already shows his mastery and the promise that he was and fulfilled way back then with these goofy Future Shocks and Walter the Wobot stories. So there's, yeah, is a nice addition to this collection of beautiful, beautiful stuff here. One last thing here. Here's a colored cover for Valiant Summer Special. I actually don't know anything about this comic, but the cover here is just great. And here on the back inside cover we have a blown up panel. In this way here, this makes a bit more sense to magnify this to this degree, because yeah, maybe there's some pixelation going on, but it's much more minor than on that front part here. But overall, highly, 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 highly recommended to get this book. And if you're living in Europe, I got this from Waltz Comics and it arrived ding-free as everything I got so far from him. So if you don't want to take any risk, my recommendation to get this one here from Walt or some other outfit. Just compare prices, but don't be too late. I would say with the paper crisis and now and all that, probably they reprinted not as many copies as they could, but or wanted to but that's just my private conspiracy theory. Thanks for listening and watching.